If someone had told me a wrong table could lead to the right life, I'd have called it luck. She should have sensed it the moment she spotted the woman at the table. Nora had arrived 10 minutes early, fussing at imaginary lint on her navy dress, heart thudding with the reckless hope that tonight might be different. That maybe this blind date wouldn't collapse into awkward pauses or lukewarm smiles. But nothing, not her best friend's excited text. Trust me, she's amazing. Not the traded photos, not even the name. Maya had prepared her for the woman who looked up and pinned her with a gaze so controlled and commanding that Nora briefly forgot to breathe. "Nora?" the woman asked, her voice smooth, low, expensive. Nora blinked, nodded, drifted forward on autopilot, and slid into the chair opposite, knees quivering under the table. 2 minutes in, though, something felt off. Not wrong, just not what she had expected. This woman was tall, statuesque, immaculate in a sleek black suit that announced a designer label, wearing elegance so effortless it could only be habit. Wasn't a bubbly vet tech had been told to expect. And yet, she couldn't make herself leave, couldn't stop herself from answering questions, laughing when the woman quirked an eyebrow and asked, "So, Nora, what exactly were you hoping for tonight?" Nora answered honestly, "To feel like I'm not wasting my time." The woman smiled, slow and dangerous. Then maybe sat at the right table after all. It wasn't until 35 minutes into wine, shared charcuterie, and the kind of eye contact that felt like it left fingerprints on her skin, that a flustered brunette approached their table. "I'm sorry, are you Nora? I think we're supposed to be meeting for the blind date." Silence fell like a stone between them. "Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more, and let me know in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference." Nora turned slowly, confused, then looked back at the woman in the suit, who was now sipping her wine with a faint smirk. "You're not Maya?" Nora asked, voice tight with embarrassment. The woman leaned in, eyes gleaming. "No, but I really hoped you wouldn't realize that just yet." Heat flushed Nora's entire body. "Then why? Why didn't you say anything?" "Because you looked like you needed saving, and frankly, I needed an excuse to talk to you." "Talk to me?" "You walked in like a question I wanted to answer," the woman said simply. "So, I took the risk." Nora stood up, heart hammering. Her real date was already sitting down at a nearby table, her voice overly sweet, her presence already wrong. "I should go," Nora murmured. "You don't have to. This is insane, is it?" the woman countered. "Or is this what a moment looks like before it changes everything?" Nora hesitated halfway between two tables, between two realities. "Who are you?" she asked. The woman rose slowly, extending a hand. "Vivian Kingsley, CEO of Kingsley Hotels. And if you sit back down, Nora, I promise you this night won't be something you'll want to forget." The name hit Nora like a thunderclap. Everyone in the city knew Kingsley. Vivian Kingsley wasn't just rich. She was a force. Nora stared at her, at the unshakable calm, the amused challenge of her eyes, and against all logic, all reason, against the pull of politeness and expectation, she sat back down. "You're bold," Nora said. "You're brave," Vivian replied. "There's a difference, and this isn't just a game to you." "No," Vivian said, more serious now. "This is instinct, and I always trust my instincts." They talked for another hour, two, long after the mistaken date had come and gone, long after the staff began clearing the other tables. Nora found herself telling Vivian things she hadn't said out loud in years. About her failed startup, her fear of settling, her craving for something real. Vivian listened like she was memorizing her, and when Vivian finally said, "I'd like to see you again," it didn't feel rushed. It felt inevitable. Nora walked home that night under a sky full of stars, holding her phone like it might burn her hand because it now held a message from Vivian Kingsley. Not a missed connection, a spark. And sparks, Nora knew, could become fires. She just hadn't expected to want one quite so badly. Nora stared at her phone all morning like it was mocking her. She'd barely slept the night before, tired from the adrenaline of it all. Vivian's voice still echoing in her head. That amused, confident smile imprinted behind her eyelids. It wasn't just that Vivian Kingsley had kissed her hand before leaving, murmuring until next time, like a promise wrapped in silk. It was how Nora had responded to it, how she'd melted into that touch, how she'd wanted that next time more than she was willing to admit. But that was the problem. This wasn't normal. It wasn't logical. It wasn't safe. Nora had been on exactly 17 dates since her last real relationship ended 2 years ago. 17 women, and not one of them made her feel what Vivian had managed to do in less than an hour, which either meant Vivian was dangerous or Nora was desperate, or both. By noon, the message finally came. Friday, 8 p.m. I'll send a car. Bring an appetite. No emojis, no unnecessary words, just direct, controlled, and somehow still dripping with the same seduction Nora had felt across the table last night. She typed and deleted her reply 3 times before settling on, "Should I be nervous?" The response came almost instantly. "Only if you plan on lying to me." Nora stared at the screen, pulse quickening. Was this a date? Was this a power play? Was this some game rich people played when they were bored? Or was this what it felt like when you finally collided with someone operating on the same unspoken frequency? Nora spent the rest of the week in a fog of anticipation and dread, alternating between replaying every moment of their first meeting and convincing herself it had all been a fluke. Her best friend, Naya, laughed when she finally told her. "Wait, Vivian Kingsley." Naya shrieked. As a billionaire hotel heiress turned empire builder ice queen of Aldermere. "She's not an ice queen," Nora said automatically, then paused. "Okay, maybe a little, but not with me." "Oh my God, she's going to eat you alive." Nora glared. "Thank you for the confidence boost." "No, I mean it in a hot way, like you'll thank her after." Nora threw a pillow at her. But the truth was, Naya wasn't wrong. Vivian exuded the kind of magnetism that dared you to touch, even as it warned you you'd probably burn. Friday arrived with a city storm. Rain glazed the sidewalks. Thunder rumbled low over the skyline as Nora paced her tiny apartment like a caged thing. At exactly 7:50, a sleek black town car slid to the curb. The driver lifted a black umbrella, said, "Miss Quinn," and escorted her as if she were royalty. Nora wore a fitted wine-red dress bold enough to be seen, not so daring it revealed how out of her depth she felt. When the car stopped before one of the Kingsley hotels, not the downtown flagship, but a boutique property in the Stonebridge district, her stomach sank. "She's taking me to her own hotel," she whispered. In the lobby, a hostess greeted her by name and steered her past the main restaurant to a private elevator. "Miss Kingsley is waiting upstairs." Nora stepped into the penthouse suite and understood at once. This wasn't a reservation. It was a world Vivian had arranged. Soft jazz drifted from somewhere unseen. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a glittering city. A private chef stood behind a small marble island, finishing plates with quiet care. Vivian waited at the bar, pouring to glasses of wine. Silk blouse tucked into tailored black trousers. Barefoot as if to remind Nora that even queens could be at ease in their own realms. "You came," Vivian said, smiling without surprise. "Was there a chance I wouldn't?" Nora replied. Vivian handed her a glass. "Everyone has a choice. I was hoping you'd make the right one." Dinner felt surreal, delicious, intimate. Their conversation moved lightly between playful and vulnerable. Nora told stories about her chaotic childhood, about the first time she fell in love with a woman, and how it ended in heartbreak. Vivian listened with unerring focus, offering little about herself, but asking questions that made Nora feel seen in ways she didn't understand. Finally, Nora put her fork down and said, "Why me?" Vivian sipped her wine. "What do you mean? You could have anyone. You probably have had everyone. So why go after some woman sitting at the wrong table?" Because I wasn't looking for someone perfect. I was looking for someone real. And you think that's me? Vivian met her gaze. I think you're pretending you don't want this as much as I do. Nora swallowed hard. This is moving fast. Then tell me to stop. Nora opened her mouth, then closed it. I can't. Vivian reached out, brushing her fingers lightly over Nora's wrist. The touch was electric. Good, she murmured, because I don't like playing games. But I also don't offer second chances if someone walks away. Is that a threat? Nora asked. No, Vivian said softly. It's a boundary. Nora leaned in, the tension between them taut and humming. What exactly are the rules then? No lying, no pretending, no half measures. If we do this, Nora, we do it completely. Nora should have run, should have said she needed time. But instead, she whispered, then I guess I'm all in. Vivian smiled like a wolf in velvet. And for the first time, Nora didn't feel like prey. She felt like a match held to gasoline. Nora hadn't intended to stay. She had told herself out loud in the car ride 3 times that she would eat, keep things light, leave with dignity. She had worn perfume but not heels, lipstick but not red, a careful balance, measured, controlled. But nothing about being near Vivian Kingsley was controllable. Nothing about the way she looked at Nora, like she was the most fascinating risk in the room. Nothing about the way her voice dipped low when she said Nora's name like it was a secret, too delicious to share. And now somehow it was nearly midnight and Nora was barefoot on a velvet rug, a glass of wine forgotten on the coffee table, and Vivian was sitting close to close, watching her like she could taste every flicker of emotion that passed over Nora's face. You said you don't play games, Nora murmured. But this feels like one. Then maybe you're not used to being wanted, Vivian replied, voice smooth as silk, but with that dangerous honesty curling beneath it. At least not like this. You don't even know me, Nora said, not sure if she wanted to argue or confess. You don't know what I've done, what I've failed at. I know your eyes give away more than your words do. I know your laugh isn't something you offer freely. I know you hide behind sarcasm because honesty scares you. And I know you're terrified of the fact that you want this right now, more than you want to keep yourself safe. Nora stared at her, breath caught in her chest. No one had ever spoken to her like that, like they weren't just listening, but reading. This is insane, she whispered. Maybe, Vivian said, tilting her head, but it's real. And that was the terrifying part, because Nora had dated women who said all the right things, but never made her feel this raw. She had been admired, complimented, even loved but never seen. Not like this. Vivian stood, crossed the space between them, and offered her hand. Come here. Nora hesitated, then placed her fingers in Vivian's palm. She expected Vivian to kiss her. Instead, she led her to the massive window overlooking the city. What do you see? She asked. Lights, Nora said, breath shallow, noise, distance. I see opportunity, power, 1,000 lives happening all at once. And in all of them, I still want to be right here. Nora turned, found Vivian's eyes already on her. With me? Yes. Nora didn't speak. She couldn't because her body was already leaning forward, pulled by something magnetic and irreversible. When their lips finally met, it wasn't soft. It was claiming. It was knee-pressed into every inch of skin. Nora melted and burned all at once, her hands tangling in Vivian's silk blouse as Vivian's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her in like she'd waited forever for this exact contact. It wasn't perfect. It was hungry. And Nora realized somewhere between the second kiss and the third that she hadn't touched anyone in months. Not like this. Not without regret. When Vivian finally pulled back, both of them breathless, Nora didn't step away. Is this still instinct? She asked, voice trembling. This, Vivian said, her forehead resting lightly against Nora's, is certainty. Nora exhaled long and shaky. I can't just fall into something without knowing where it's going. Then tell me what you need to feel safe. Consistency, Nora whispered. Honesty. No disappearing. No using me like a distraction. You're not a distraction, Vivian said firmly. You're the first thing I've wanted for myself in a long time. But you're you. You live in a different world. Then I'll make space in mine for you. Nora wanted to believe her. God, she wanted to. But life had taught her not to trust grand gestures. So she stepped back, heart still thudding in her chest, and said, then prove it. Vivian's smile returned, small but sharp. Dinner? Tomorrow night. My driver will take you home tonight and pick you up again at 7. You choose the place this time. Your world. Nora narrowed her eyes. And you'll actually show up. I never say things I don't mean, Nora. And somehow Nora knew that was true. She left the penthouse in a daze, fingers still tingling from the way Vivian had held her. She climbed into the car with a mind full of what-ifs, of maybe of too much too soon. But beneath it all, steady and unmistakable, was a thread of hope. Not the naive kind she'd carried into other dates. This was sharper, heavier, and much, much more dangerous. The next morning, Nora made the reservation at her favorite hidden Italian spot, a tiny hole in the wall in Eastborough, run by a retired opera singer and her wife. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't rich, but it was hers. She didn't tell Naya the details, just that she was seeing her again. Naya smirked and muttered something about glutton for punishment, but Nora didn't care. She wasn't chasing chaos. She was walking straight into it, eyes open. The restaurant was dimly lit and quiet when Nora arrived 15 minutes early. She wore black jeans, boots, a soft red blouse, and the tiniest bit of eyeliner. Nothing like the polished woman Vivian had met at the penthouse. She wanted to be real. She wanted Vivian to meet all of her. Messy, hopeful, afraid. At exactly 7 o'clock, the door opened and Vivian walked in. She wore no makeup. Her hair was pulled back. She wore a leather jacket over a t-shirt and jeans, no heels. And when she saw Nora, her whole face softened. You said your world, Vivian murmured as she sat down. So here I am. And just like that, the balance shifted. Not power for power, not seduction for obedience, but something else. Something frighteningly close to equal footing. Nora smiled. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't pretending, and neither was Vivian. The waitress smiled when she saw them. Nora and Vivian seated across from each other in the quietest corner of the restaurant, elbows on the rustic wood table, to glasses of wine already poured, untouched. Nora couldn't stop staring at Vivian. She'd seen her in heels and silk in the glittering penthouse above the city. But like this, bare-faced, relaxed, dressed in something that didn't cost half Nora's rent. She was dangerous in a new way. Less untouchable, more real, more tempting. You're quiet tonight, Vivian said gently, running her finger along the rim of her glass. Nora blinked. I'm just processing. Bad sign? Not yet. Nora smiled faintly. I think I'm just not used to this dinner. No, you showing up like this, letting me see the person behind the name. Vivian's gaze sharpened. Is that what you're doing? Looking for cracks. I'm looking for something that doesn't scare me. And Nora tilted her head, still deciding. Vivian laughed softly, a sound Nora was beginning to crave. That's fair. They ordered pasta and red wine and shared bread like old lovers instead of two women who'd technically only just met. Conversation floated between them like it belonged there. Effortless, surprising. Nora asked about Vivian's first job. Vivian told her she'd once worked the front desk of her father's hotel under a fake name. For an entire summer. He wanted me to earn the right to run the business, she said, twirling pasta on her fork. He thought I needed to understand what it was like to work 12 hours on your feet and still smile. And did you understand? Vivian sipped her wine. Not right away. I was angry, but I learned. And now I hire people who remind me of that summer. People who make me want to be better. Nora studied her. You weren't what I expected. What were you expecting? A woman who builds hotel empires doesn't usually show up in Converse and a leather jacket. I don't usually show up, Vivian said quietly. Not like this. Nora's chest tightened. She hated how much she wanted to believe her, how every carefully placed wall inside her was already starting to bend. So why now? She asked. Why me? Vivian leaned forward, elbows on the table. Because you're complicated and I like complicated. Nora laughed, caught off guard. You're the only person who's ever said that like it's a compliment. It is. Most people want easy, simple, predictable. But you make me work for it. You make me want to earn the next word out of your mouth. Nora flushed. You don't even know if I snore yet. I'll find out eventually. That's a bold assumption. I told you, Vivian said, voice lower now. I don't chase what I don't want. And I don't say what I don't mean. Nora took a long sip of wine, trying to steady herself. It wasn't only the flirting. It was the way Vivian made it feel safe to want something in return. You scare me, she admitted quietly, because I don't know what you want from me. I want you to stop waiting for me to disappear. That made Nora still. Everyone disappears eventually. Then I'll have to prove you wrong. Dinner ended in a silence that wasn't awkward, a charged quiet. Neither of them hurried to leave. When they finally stepped into the cool Eastboro night, the city seemed softer somehow, more forgiving. Let me take you home, Vivian said. Nora hesitated. No pressure, Vivian added. Just let me be the one who gets you there safe. That was the trouble. Nora wanted Vivian to take her home. She wanted the pressure, the ache, the unraveling, and still, she wanted to keep some piece of herself intact. So she nodded. When the driver pulled up, she slid into the back seat beside Vivian without a word. Halfway across the bridge, Vivian reached over and took Nora's hand. Nothing more, just laced fingers, warm and steady. Nora looked at their hands, then at Vivian's profile lit by the city's soft glow. Do you always get what you want? No, Vivian said, but I always fight for it. And what if I don't want to be something you win? Then tell me how to make you feel like more. Nora exhaled, her heart hammering. I don't need grand gestures. Good. I don't make them, Vivian replied. I make plans. When the car stopped outside Nora's building, Vivian stepped out first and opened her door. Nora studied her. You really want to come up? I want what you want, Vivian said, but I'm not here for just one night. Then why are you here? Vivian moved closer. Because I think I could fall for you, and I don't say that lightly. You barely know me. Then let me. Nora trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of possibility. Okay, she whispered. Come up. Inside, the apartment was small and warm, crowded with art prints and mismatched furniture. A half-finished cup of tea on the counter. Books stacked beside the couch. Vivian entered slowly, as if she didn't want to disturb anything. This feels like you, she said. It is me, Nora answered. Flawed and unfiltered. Good, Vivian murmured. That's the version I want. They didn't kiss right away. They sat on the couch, knees touching, talking about everything and nothing. Nora showed her a painting she'd done. Vivian asked about the scar on her hand. And when the silence came, thick and sweet, it was Vivian who leaned in first. This kiss was different, slower, less urgent, but deeper somehow. Nora felt it in her spine, in her gut, in the part of her that never let anyone all the way in. When they finally pulled apart, Nora pressed her forehead to Vivian's. This is happening, isn't it? Yes, Vivian whispered. Unless you don't want it to. I don't know what I'm doing. Neither do I. That's what makes it honest. Nora smiled, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was about to lose something. She felt like she was about to begin. Nora woke up to sunlight slanting through her bedroom window, and the softest warmth at her back. For a few disoriented seconds, she thought she'd dreamed it all. The dinner, the wine, the way Vivian had looked at her like she was already hers. But then she shifted slightly and felt fingers tighten gently around her waist. A breath slow and steady near her neck, and Vivian's voice, sleepy, low, intimate, saying, "Good morning." Nora didn't move. She let the silence stretch, let the moment settle over her skin like a second blanket. This wasn't just waking up next to someone. It felt like waking up inside a decision she hadn't realized she'd already made. "You stayed," she whispered. Vivian pressed her lips to Nora's shoulder. "You asked me to. I didn't think you'd actually. I meant what I said. No half measures." Nora turned slowly until they were facing each other in the sheets. Vivian looked softer in the morning light, hair slightly tousled, eyes heavy with sleep, but still alert. "You always look this composed when you wake up?" Nora asked, voice light. Vivian smirked. "You're the first person who's ever been in bed with me to ask." Nora raised an eyebrow. "Oh, so I'm just another first for you?" "No," Vivian said, more serious now. "You're the one I never expected to want this badly." Nora's chest tightened. "You don't even know if I hog the covers." "You do," Vivian said dryly. "But I don't mind." They laughed, the kind of laugh that cracks something open. After a long pause, Nora asked, "What happens now?" "Breakfast. Then you tell me how your day looks and I try to fit into it." "You want to fit into my day?" Nora asked, skeptical. "Don't you have an empire to run?" "Empires can wait a few hours," Vivian said. "Besides, you're harder to manage than most of my board." Nora blinked. "Wow, romantic. Don't take it personally. I like a challenge." "And you think I'm a challenge?" "You're a locked vault with a key you don't trust anyone to use," Vivian said. "And yet here I am." That made Nora go quiet because she didn't want to admit how true it was. How terrifying and exhilarating it was to let someone in. They ate breakfast on the couch. Vivian in one of Nora's oversized t-shirts. Nora in leggings and a messy bun. Coffee in mismatched mugs and eggs slightly overcooked. It felt domestic in a way that was both foreign and intoxicating. Nora couldn't remember the last time she let herself share a morning like this. Not just the bed. The morning the normally. "You're too good at this," Nora said at one point. "At what?" "Making people feel like they matter." "That's not a trick," Vivian said gently. "At least not with you." Nora looked at her, trying to read between the words. "So, what do you want out of this?" "Really," Vivian didn't hesitate. "I want to know you. All of you. The good, the complicated, the scared, the brilliant. I want the version you don't show anyone." "And then what?" "Then I decide if I can handle it," Vivian said with a teasing smile. Spoiler alert. I already know I can. Nora stared at her. "You don't play fair." "No," Vivian said softly. "I play real." Nora's phone buzzed. It was a text from her client. A last-minute website issue that needed her attention. "Duty calls," she muttered, standing. "Work freelance design. One of my clients is panicking over a banner ad. Can I come?" Nora turned slowly to what? "Watch me code and swear at my screen." "Exactly," Vivian said. "I want to see your world. Remember that part of my world is messy." "Good. Then I'll feel right at home." Nora didn't know why she said yes. Maybe because she didn't want to let the moment end. Or maybe because she wanted to see if Vivian could actually fit into her life, instead of just making her fit into hers. The next few hours were surreal. Nora works from her tiny home office. Vivian curled up on the couch with her laptop, handling some investor call, like it was just background noise. At one point, Vivian brought her coffee without being asked. At another, Nora looked over and caught her watching with a quiet smile. No words. No judgment, just watching. It unnerved her. It also thrilled her. Around 3 p.m., Nora sat back and groaned. "I need air." "Walk?" Vivian asked. "Sure." They walked through the neighborhood, hands brushing, not quite holding. The autumn air was crisp, golden leaves crunching beneath their feet. Nora felt like she was walking through a dream with the most impossible woman by her side. But dreams always came with an expiration date, and Nora couldn't ignore the gnawing question inside her anymore. Vivian, she said, stopping. We need to talk about boundaries. Vivian turned to face her instantly. Okay. You say you don't want games, that this is real. But I can't do this unless I know where we're going. Where do you want to go? Vivian asked. Nora swallowed hard. I want something that's mine. Not temporary, not convenient, not a secret. Vivian's jaw tightened, just slightly. You think I'd keep you a secret? You're one of the most powerful women in the city. Nora said, I'm a struggling freelance designer who can barely pay rent a month. You don't think people are going to talk? Let them. It's not that easy. It can be, Vivian said. If we choose each other. Nora looked down at her shoes. I've been someone's secret before. I promised myself I'd never do it again. Then you won't, Vivian said, stepping closer. I don't need to hide you. I need to protect you. But that doesn't mean I'll pretend you don't exist. Nora looked up. And what about your world? Your rules? We'll make new ones. Vivian said ones that fit us. Nora wasn't sure whether to laugh or cry. So she kissed her instead on a street corner in broad daylight in front of the world. And for once, she didn't care who saw. It took less than 72 hours for the outside world to find them. Nora didn't even realize what was happening at first. She was working late from her apartment, earbuds in, head down, completely absorbed in a rush client project when her phone buzzed with 3 texts in a row from Naya, all caps. Nora. Holy, check the gossip sites right now. Your face. Your actual face. Nora blinked confused and pulled up her browser. Her fingers trembled before she even typed the search. She didn't need to enter Vivian's name. Her own was enough now. Nora Quinn. She hit enter. The first headline made her stomach drop. Mystery woman spotted with Kingsley heiress. Who is she? The image was sharp, intrusive. A zoomed-in photo of Nora and Vivian holding hands in Eastborough. Sunlight spilling down between them. It was clearly from 2 days ago. The second article was worse. Too pretty to be a secret. Vivian Kingsley's new normal girlfriend raises eyebrows. Nora's hands froze on the keyboard. There were 7 articles already circulating, each speculating on who she was, what she did, what she looked like. Why Vivian would be seen in public with someone like her. Normal. One site called her plain but endearing. Another speculated she was a paid companion. A disgusting euphemism Nora had never thought she'd see attached to her name. Her LinkedIn was LinkedIn 1. So was her website. And her most recent Instagram post had gone from 67 likes to over 40 in a matter of hours. The comments were vicious, curious, some kind, most not. She sat frozen in her desk chair, heart pounding against her ribs like it was trying to escape her body. A knock at her door nearly made her scream. When she opened it, Vivian was standing there, not in designer heels or her power suit armor, but in jeans and a coat holding to coffees. Her expression shifted the moment she saw Nora's face. You saw it. Nora stepped back without a word and let her in. It's everywhere, she said numbly. I know you didn't warn me. I didn't know it would happen this fast, Vivian said, closing the door behind her. Someone must have tipped them off. Maybe a pedestrian. Maybe someone from my own staff. I'm sorry. They think I'm some hired something. They're vultures, Vivian said. They feed off assumptions. My client saw it. Nora's voice cracked. My inbox is full of people asking if I'm available for press. Like I don't even know what they think I am. I can call someone, have the photos taken down. But it's out there now. Nora snapped. It's out there and I'm out there and I didn't get to choose that. Vivian took a breath, calm and steady. You're right, and I should have prepared you. But I can't control the press. I can only control how I respond to it and how I protect you. Protect me, Nora repeated. I don't want protection. I want to not feel like my life just became someone else's circus. Vivian stepped closer. Then let's deal with it together. What does that even mean? Nora demanded. Are you going to post a statement? Tell them I'm not some escort or social climber. Or are you going to disappear until the headlines change? You think I'd disappear now? Vivian's voice was low. Dangerous. You think I'd run when it gets difficult? Nora opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't know what she was thinking. She only knew that her world had been turned inside out without warning, and the woman who had walked so confidently into her life had also dragged her into the light, without asking if she was ready. I don't know what I think, Nora admitted softer now, but I know I feel exposed and small and like none of this is mine anymore. Vivian's eyes softened. She reached out, but Nora took a step back. Not yet, Nora whispered. Okay, Vivian said gently. I'll give you space, but not distance. I'm not going anywhere, Nora. Not unless you ask me to. Nora didn't respond. She just nodded. Vivian left quietly, and Nora collapsed on her couch, phone still buzzing beside her. The weight of being seen without consent settling into her skin like frost. The next morning, she woke up to a new post on Vivian's official Instagram. A single photo unfiltered of Nora's painting from her living room wall. The caption read, "The most beautiful things are the ones that weren't meant for show." It had over 200,000 likes into hours. Nora didn't know how to feel. It wasn't a full gesture, but it was something. And it reminded her that Vivian had seen her, had remembered. But it didn't stop the calls, or the comments, or the whispers from neighbors she didn't even know. The media storm only got louder. Her work suffered. She couldn't concentrate. She couldn't sleep. And when she finally answered Naya's fifth call, she didn't even have the energy to fake a smile. I didn't sign up for this, she told her. I just wanted to fall in love with someone who made me feel safe. You're falling in love? Naya asked carefully. Nora went still. I didn't mean, yes, you did, Naya said. And that's okay. But ask yourself, is this about the press? Or about what loving her will always bring? She sat in silence long after the call ended. That night, when she opened her door, Vivian was there again. No security, no driver, just her. Hands in her coat pockets, looking tired, human, impossibly steady. I don't have a solution, Vivian said, but I'm here. Nora let her in. I don't want to disappear, she whispered, but I don't want to lose myself either. Then don't, Vivian said. Let me meet you halfway. We'll find the line together. For the first time since the world had split, Nora believed they might. After Vivian left, the apartment fell to quiet. Nora sat at her desk, eyes glazed over the same line of code she'd been poking for half an hour. She knew the bug wasn't in the code. It was in her, the churn of uncertainty that had taken up residence in her chest. Since the articles hit, she'd never imagined what it would be like to be thrown beneath someone else's spotlight. Her life had always been hers, private, low profile, hers to shape and rebuild. Now strangers had opinions about her mouth, her resume, the angle of her shoulders when she walked beside a woman who ruled boardrooms. And worse, she couldn't control any of it. But Vivian looked at her like none of it mattered. No promises, no PR, no hush money, no fabricated statements. Just showing up, again and again, with coffee, with calm, with that relentless steadiness in her eyes. Nora wasn't used to being shown up for. She didn't know how to hold it. 2 days later, just as the anxiety began to split her at the seams again, a single message lit her phone. Dinner Friday with me, and a very specific question. I need to ask you. Please say yes. Nora stared at the screen, her heart pounding for a different reason entirely. Vivian hadn't texted since that night she'd given the space she promised. But now she was calling her back in, and Nora couldn't pretend that something inside her didn't want to be called. She waited an hour before replying, fingers trembling. Yes. The car came exactly at 6:45. And this time, Nora didn't second-guess her outfit. She wore something that felt like her, casual, structured, dark green with silver earrings, and her hair pulled back in a soft twist. When she stepped out of the car, it wasn't a restaurant that greeted her. It was a townhouse in the Westbridge quarter. Quiet, elegant, lit from within. The door opened before she knocked. Vivian stood there in bare feet and black cashmere, holding a glass of red wine and looking somehow completely untouchable and completely hers. At the same time, "You came," Vivian said softly. Nora walked in. "You asked." Vivian smiled, closed the door behind her, and led her through the townhouse. Every inch tastefully decorated, but warm lived in. Not a showroom, not a press trap, just a home. Vivian handed her a second glass of wine, and for a long moment, they didn't speak. The quiet was comfortable now, loaded, familiar. And then Vivian said, "I want to ask you something that might scare you, but I promise it comes from the right place." Nora nodded slowly. "Okay. I have a retreat next week, a corporate one of our properties in Evermont. Board members, VPs, investors. It's a thing I can't get out of, and I hate going alone." Nora blinked. "You want me to come?" "I want you there," Vivian said, "but not as decoration. I want them to see you." Nora felt the shift in the air like a click. "Why?" "Because I want to make it real. Not just for us, for everyone." Nora stared at her. "You want me to be introduced to your company, to your people?" "Yes. That's not small. Neither is what I feel for you." Nora stepped back, the weight of it hitting her all at once. "Vivian, you can say no," Vivian said quickly. "You can say it's too much, that I'm asking for something you're not ready to give. But I need you to know I'm not doing this lightly. I don't want to be something that only happens in private. I want to be the woman who walks into a room with you on her arm and dares anyone to question it." Nora's chest rose and fell in sharp, shallow breaths. "You're used to being watched," she said. "You know how to carry that attention. I don't." "You don't have to carry it," Vivian said gently. "I will. I just want you there beside me." Nora turned, walked to the window, stared out at the dark street. Her reflection floated in the glass, half-formed, uncertain. "What would I even say to them?" "You'll say what you want," Vivian replied. "You don't have to prove anything. You just have to be exactly who you are." Nora turned slowly. "And if I mess up, then we laugh, we drink. We disappear into the woods and make out by a fire pit until we forget the whole thing." Nora burst out laughing. The sound caught her by surprise. "So did the warmth that followed?" "You're serious about this," she said. "I am, but you barely know me. I know I've never felt like this before." Nora walked toward her, heart a riot inside her chest. "You make it sound so easy." "It's not," Vivian admitted, "but it's worth it. And so are you." Nora stared up at her. "I'll come," she whispered to Evermont. Vivian's breath left her in a rush, like she hadn't allowed herself to hope. "Really?" "Yes, but on one condition. Anything. You tell me one thing about you that scares you to say out loud." Vivian went still. Then slowly she set her wine down and stepped closer. "I've never brought anyone to something like this," she said. "Not because I didn't want to, but because I was always afraid they'd disappoint me or I'd disappoint them. That I'd let them too close, and they'd see I'm not as in control as I pretend to be." Nora blinked. "That's your fear? That I'm not enough when the suit comes off?" Nora reached up and touched her cheek. "You are and you are," Vivian replied. "More than enough." That night, they didn't rush anything. They cooked together, burned the garlic, laughed too hard, danced barefoot in the kitchen. They fell asleep wrapped around each other. No urgency, no pressure, just warmth and breath and skin. Nora didn't know what Evermont would bring. She only knew that for the first time since the photos leaked, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she had a choice again. And this time, she was choosing forward. The air in Evermont was colder than Nora expected. It wasn't just the temperature. It was the altitude, the distance. the sharp way the wind cut across her cheeks when she stepped out of the car. There were pine trees that reached endlessly into the sky and mountains that rose like ancient, unmoving judges in the background. The Kingsley property itself was stunning. A sprawling glass and wood luxury resort tucked into the side of a mountain, private, serene, and deliberately unreachable by the outside world. It looked like it had been plucked from the pages of an architectural magazine and dropped onto a snow-dusted dreamscape. And Nora felt like a smudge on an otherwise perfect photograph. She wore a fitted cream coat and her best boots. And still, as soon as she stepped inside the stone and cedar lobby, she felt eyes on her, subtle, calculated, a flicker of recognition from the front desk staff, a pause from the man in the tailored coat by the fire. Nora had always been good at reading a room. This one told her she wasn't expected, and worse, she wasn't trusted. "Stop," Vivian said, leaning in just enough so that her voice reached only Nora's ears. "They don't matter." "They do," Nora murmured. "You built this world. You brought me into it. I just want to know how to walk through it without tripping over invisible rules." Vivian took her hand. "You walk through it like it's already yours." But Nora wasn't sure that was true. The staff escorted them to the private wing reserved for executives, and everything was polished, controlled, intimidating. Nora didn't know where to put her hands, how to stand, what expression to hold on her face when they passed people in suits who looked at her like a misplaced guest. Vivian, meanwhile, was a different creature here. Her walk changed, her voice. She spoke with authority, nodded with weight, her presence commanding without effort. Watching her like this, flawless, confident, sharp, Nora felt both proud and hollow. Proud because she admired her, hollow because she wasn't sure where she fit in this version of Vivian's life. Their suite was massive, windows overlooking the valley, a fireplace already lit, a welcome basket on the table with their names on it. Nora walked in and sank onto the edge of the bed, exhaling slowly. "You okay?" Vivian asked, sitting beside her. "Just processing." "Want to leave?" "No," Nora said quickly. "I want to learn how to stay." Vivian reached for her hand. "Then I'll help you." That evening, there was a welcome reception. Cocktail hour, fireplaces, crystal glasses, thin smiles. Nora wore black, clean, simple, elegant, and still felt like a fraud as she stepped into the room on Vivian's arm. The guests were powerful men in custom suits, women with sharp eyes and practiced poise. Nora caught bits of conversation, mergers, projections, equity. It all felt like a language she'd never learned, but Vivian stayed close, introducing her as simply and directly as possible. "This is Nora. She's with me." Some nodded, some smiled too politely, some blinked in surprise. One woman, a striking executive named Serena with dark red lipstick and a gaze that could cut steel, tilted her head and said, "So, you're the reason Vivian's finally breathing again?" Nora froze. Vivian answered before she could. "She's the reason I'm finally living again." Serena raised a glass. "Well, I suppose I can't argue with that." Nora smiled, but it felt thin. Later, after too many stairs and too few safe places to land, she stepped outside onto the balcony alone. The cold bit at her cheeks, but she welcomed it. She needed something real, something unscripted behind her. The door opened. "Vivian." "Of course, you left," she said softly. "Just for air." "Too much," Nora nodded. "But I'm still here. I saw you with Serena." "She's direct," Vivian said. "Always has been." "Is there a history there?" Nora didn't look at her when she asked. "Yes, a long time ago. It didn't mean anything. Not like this." Nora finally turned. "It's not jealousy," she said. "It's just this isn't my world. I feel like I need permission to exist in it." "You don't," Vivian said, stepping close. "You're not here because I brought you. You're here because you belong with me and I belong here. So, by definition, they're going to have to adjust." Nora smiled this time genuinely. You make it sound easy. It's not, but it's ours. That night, back in the suite, Nora stood at the window in silence while Vivian undressed behind her. Do you ever get tired of fighting to be taken seriously? Nora asked. Every day, Vivian answered. But I don't fight for them. I fight for what matters. Nora turned slowly. And I matter. Vivian crossed to her, hands gentle on Nora's waist. You matter more than anything I've built. Nora kissed her like it was the only thing she could do to hold herself together. Like maybe if she kissed her hard enough, long enough, deeply enough, the ache of not fitting and would disappear. The night blurred after that. Slow touches, warm sheets, words whispered in the dark. And in the morning, Nora woke up before the sun, slipped out of bed, wrapped herself in a blanket, and sat by the window to watch the mountains. They didn't care who she was, didn't ask for her resume, didn't demand she prove her worth. They just were immense, indifferent, constant. And something about that made her feel a little less alone. Nora hadn't expected the boardroom to feel like a battlefield, but from the moment she stepped through the doors with Vivian at her side, she felt the temperature shift. Eyes flicked up. Some smiled, some didn't. The long table stretched across the sleek, modern room like a barrier, and everyone seated at it looked like they'd been born knowing exactly how to command a room. Nora didn't speak. She stood slightly behind Vivian's shoulder, not out of submission, but because it felt safer there, like she could watch without being watched too much in return. It was supposed to be a casual breakfast, nothing official, just a meeting between key stakeholders and executives. Vivian had told her that being present was enough, that she didn't need to say anything, that her existence in the room was a statement in itself. But Nora could feel the unspoken questions buzzing in the air. Why is she here? What does she know? How serious is this? The table buzzed with conversation, half of which she didn't understand. Numbers, quarterly projections, site expansions, language that sounded polished and distant. Nora tried to stay relaxed, tried to smile where it felt appropriate, nod when Vivian leaned slightly back in her chair, and brush her hand across Nora's wrist like a silent check-in. But then mid-con conversation, one of the senior partners, an older man in a navy suit with sharp cheekbones and a sharper tongue, turned his eyes directly to her. Miss Quinn, isn't it? Nora blinked. Yes, Vivian tells us you're creative. What field exactly? The room fell quiet. Nora felt every molecule of pressure land squarely on her chest. I'm a designer, she said calmly. Digital design, UX branding, some front-end development. The man tilted his head. Interesting. And is that your background academically as well? No, she said. My degree is in art history. A slight pause. The kind that feels louder than words. Ah, he said. So, a creative mind that explains Vivian's interest. The implication wasn't subtle. It hung there, stinking of condescension, like she was some aesthetic indulgence rather than a person of substance. Nora felt her throat tighten. But then Vivian spoke, voice steady and calm. Nora has worked with early-stage startups and corporate rebrands. Her interface redesign for a finance app last quarter increased engagement by 23%. She's modest, but she's good at what she does. The man smiled, not quite genuine. Impressive, though I imagine your world and ours don't intersect often. Nora smiled tightly. They do more than you think. Design is about guiding people, about clarity, about giving people something they don't even realize they need yet. That's not so different from running a company, is it? A murmur of amusement moved around the table. Someone even smiled for real. Vivian looked at her, not with surprise, but with something warmer, deeper pride. After the meeting, as they stepped into the hallway, Vivian slipped her hand around Nora's waist and whispered, You didn't have to say anything, but I'm glad you did. Nora's hands were still shaking. I didn't plan to. That makes it even better. I don't want to be your proof. Nora said, Your prop. Your look how grounded I am, accessory. Vivian stopped walking. Is that how it felt for a second? I'm sorry. Nora looked up at her, but also I get it. This is your world. You're allowed to protect your position in it. She broke off, sighing. I don't want to lose myself just because I'm next to someone powerful. Then don't, Vivian said. You didn't today. You owned it. You put him in his place with a sentence. Nora blinked. You saw that. Of course I did. He was a jerk. He's a relic, Vivian muttered. Most of them are. But you handled it better than most of my execs would have. You really think I was good in there? Vivian stopped, turned her fully to face her. I think you were brilliant. Nora tried not to blush. She failed. That night, they skipped the networking dinner and disappeared into the woods instead. There was a trail behind the resort, freshly dusted in snow, and they walked it in silence for a while. Vivian's gloved hand wrapped around Nora's, breath visible in the cold. The mountains were darker now, still, watching. I keep waiting for this to collapse, Nora said softly. For the moment where I wake up and realize you were never mine. I was never anyone's, Vivian replied. Not until you. Nora stopped walking. Do you mean that? Yes, even if this gets harder, especially if it does. Nora leaned into her, pressing her forehead to Vivian's shoulder. I'm scared. So am I, Vivian whispered. But I'm not going anywhere. Later, back in the suite, they made love slowly without urgency, as if every kiss was a confirmation, every touch of promise. Nora didn't feel like a stranger anymore. She felt like something had shifted, like maybe, just maybe, the mountain was beginning to accept her. And in the dark, as she lay tangled in Vivian's arms, she whispered something she hadn't said in years. I think I'm falling in love with you. She felt Vivian's breath catch, then arms tightened around her. Don't think, Vivian whispered. Just fall. I'll catch you. The day after the boardroom incident, Nora woke up in the Kingsley suite, feeling like the world had shifted half a degree. Not enough to knock everything over, but enough that nothing sat quite where it used to. Vivian was already awake, sitting at the small table near the window, her laptop open, a steaming mug of coffee in hand. She wore glasses Nora had never seen before, thin black frames that made her look softer, almost vulnerable. Good morning, Nora murmured, voice still thick with sleep. Morning, Vivian said without looking up. Coffee, God, yes. Nora pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders as she padded barefoot across the floor. She accepted the mug and took a sip. You work even on vacation. This isn't vacation. You brought me to the mountains, Vivian. Correction, I brought you into the fire. Nora smirked. And yet I'm still standing. You did more than stand yesterday. You put Adrian Hale in his place with fewer words than I've ever managed. Nora leaned against the table. Do I get a trophy for that? You get me? Vivian said simply. Nora blinked. The words hung there heavy and clear. You say things like that so easily. It's not easy, Vivian replied. But it's true. Nora felt the familiar tremble inside her, equal parts hope and fear. I meant what I said last night, she whispered about falling. I know. And you? I'm already there. Vivian looked up then, eyes direct, exposed. I just don't know what happens now. I've never built something like this. Not with anyone who mattered. Nora sat down across from her. Then we learn together. But it only works if we both keep showing up, even when it gets messy, especially then a pause. Vivian hesitated. There's something I haven't told you. Nora went still. Okay, it's not bad. Vivian rushed to add. Not in the way you're thinking. But someone from my past. Serena. Nora stiffened. Is she going to be a problem? I don't think so. But she's not thrilled about us. Of course she isn't, Nora muttered. She sees what I see. It's not about jealousy, Vivian said. It's about power. She doesn't like that I've chosen someone outside their world. She thinks you weaken my image. Nora winced. She said that no, but she will. She's been planting seeds quietly, subtly. And I wanted to tell you because I don't want you to be blindsided. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I wanted to protect you from the poison. But I realize now that pretending it's not happening doesn't protect anything. It just makes it easier for someone like Serena to twist the narrative. Nora stood and walked to the window. Snow was falling lightly, peaceful for what was crawling under her skin. And what's your plan? I'll shut her down. I always do. What if it's not enough? Nora asked. What if she keeps pushing? Then I push back harder. Nora turned, arms crossed. I'm not afraid of her. I'm afraid of how far you're willing to go to prove something. Vivian stood slowly. I'm not trying to prove anything to her. I'm trying to protect what I love. The word hit like thunder in Nora's chest. Love. She hadn't said it. Neither had Nora. Not yet. But there it was. Unguarded. Unbeard. Real. You love me? Nora asked. Vivian didn't flinch. Yes, I do. Nora drew a breath. Then another. Then don't fight for me behind closed doors. Fight with me, side by side. If Serena has something to say, let her say it to my face. Vivian's eyes narrowed. Are you sure? Yes. I'm not some delicate thing, Vivian. I want this. I want you, but not if it means hiding behind you like a shield. Vivian crossed the room and touched her cheek, gentle. Then we do this together. That night, at the gala closing the retreat, Nora wore a deep navy dress that clung like water and caught the soft lights with a faint shimmer. Vivian had offered a stylist, a full team. Nora declined. She wanted to arrive as herself, steady, unapologetic. When they entered arm in arm, heads turned. Serena was already there, flawless and poised, drink in hand, smile edged. She reached them within minutes. Vivian, she said smoothly. And Nora, you look polished. Thank you, Nora answered evenly. I didn't come here to impress you. Brave, Serena replied coolly. No, Nora said. Honest. I'm not here to fit into your world. I'm here because Vivian invited me into hers. If that unsettles you, maybe your world isn't as stable as you think. Serena's gaze flickered just a crack, a flash. You're not what I expected, she said. Neither are you, Nora returned. Vivian watched, silent, her expression unreadable. Later, out on the balcony, catching their breath, Vivian leaned close and whispered, You scared her. Good. You scared me, too. In the best way. Nora smiled. Maybe you needed someone to shake you. Maybe I needed someone who wouldn't let me hide. She reached for Vivian's hand. You don't have to hide anymore. And for the first time, Vivian let herself lean fully into Nora, not as a shield or a symbol, but as a woman choosing to love out loud. By the time they returned from Evermont, Nora knew something had shifted. It wasn't only the way Vivian looked at her, now less guarded, more grounded, or the warmth in her touch as they moved through the city, hands grazing without pulling away. It wasn't even how the staff at Kingsley HQ greeted her with subtle nods of recognition, instead of curious stares. It was something deeper, public, unstoppable. On their third night back in Aldermere, Nora sat curled on Vivian's couch, a glass of wine in hand and her laptop balanced on her knees, staring at the news that had just broken across every major lifestyle site and business blog in the country. Vivian Kingsley confirms relationship with designer Nora Quinn in surprise statement. After Evermont retreat, the article quoted a single line from Vivian's press team. Released quietly with no press conference, no photo shoot, no publicity stunt. Just Miss Kingsley confirms her relationship with Miss Quinn and asks for the privacy and respect due to any couple building something real. No embellishments, no spin, just the truth. Nora felt the weight of it like a stone dropped gently into her chest. When Vivian entered the room, phone in hand, she paused when she saw Nora's face. You saw it, Nora nodded. I thought you said you didn't want to make a statement. I didn't, Vivian said. But after Evermont, after Serena, after watching you hold your ground in a room full of people who thought they could define you, I realized something. You're not just someone I'm seeing. You're someone I'm building a life with. That means the world doesn't get to turn you into a rumor. You're not a secret. You're not a whisper. You're mine. Nora's voice caught. You should have told me first. I wanted it to be a gift. But if I overstepped, you didn't, Nora said softly. I just wasn't ready to be seen like that. Not again. But this, it feels different. It is different. Now they're not just looking at me. They're looking through me, trying to figure out what kind of woman catches your attention. What I have that they don't. What you have, Vivian said, crossing the room and kneeling in front of her, is mine. Nora exhaled shakily. Then let them look. The media didn't stop there. Over the next week, Nora's name began appearing in places she never expected. A magazine requested an interview. A luxury brand offered her a small design collaboration. Her inbox exploded, not just with praise, but with doubt, scrutiny, and opportunity, all tangled together. They're not interested in me, she told Vivian one night. They're interested in your girlfriend. They want proximity to your brand. Then use it, Vivian said without hesitation. Leverage it. Take their attention and turn it into power. And when they move on, you'll still be you. You're not impressive because you're standing next to me, Nora. You're impressive because you stood next to me and didn't flinch. Nora didn't answer. But that night, when she opened her email and saw the offer from the design firm she'd once applied to straight out of college, an offer she'd been rejected for years ago, now suddenly thrilled to explore potential collaboration, she didn't delete it. She replied. They scheduled a meeting. She went alone. She wore dark blue, sleek, understated. She spoke with clarity, confidence, and not once did she mention Vivian's name. When the lead creative director asked, "What's changed since you first applied to us?" Nora smiled and said, "I stopped waiting for permission to be taken seriously." They offered her a freelance position on the spot. That night, she walked into Vivian's penthouse and dropped the contract on the kitchen counter. I got the job. Vivian looked up from her phone, then slowly rose, crossed the room, and swept Nora into a kiss that stole the breath from her lungs. That's what happens when you let them see you. No, Nora whispered. That's what happens when I let myself see me. The celebration was private. Wine, candles, soft music, dancing barefoot on the rug. But the next day brought a ripple neither of them expected. Vivian was scheduled to speak at a Women in Leadership panel, an event she had never once missed in 6 years. Nora had never attended, but this time, Vivian asked her to come. You don't have to say anything. Just be there with me. Nora agreed, but when they arrived, the dynamic shifted. The moderator, a poised journalist with a subtle agenda, steered the questions toward image, relationships, and how public perception affects leadership. Miss Kingsley, she said smoothly, there's been a great deal of public interest in your recent statement. Do you believe being in a high-profile relationship affects your position in the industry? Vivian's gaze didn't waver. If anything, it's made me more grounded, more human, and more aware of how important it is to lead with integrity, not just professionally, but personally. Do you believe your relationship sets a precedent? I believe my relationship reminds people that love isn't a liability. It's a strength. Nora watched the room shift. Some nods, some tight lips, some sit-along glances. And Miss Quinn, the moderator, continued. How do you handle being a public figure now? Nora's throat dried instantly. She hadn't expected to be addressed, but Vivian touched her hand. Light, steady. Nora spoke without thinking. I'm not a public figure. I'm a designer. I just happen to be in love with someone who is. A pause, a breath. But I think the question is flawed. Handle implies something burdensome, like love is something to manage. It's not. It's something to build. And if people are watching me do that, then maybe they'll learn to let themselves do it, too. The room fell quiet, then applause. Soft at first, then louder. Nora didn't look at Vivian. She couldn't because she knew that if she did, she'd fall apart from the look she'd find there. Later in the car, Vivian finally broke the silence. "You're not just part of my story anymore, Nora." Nora turned her head. "What am I?" "You're a story I'm proudest of." The first message came at 3:12 a.m. Nora didn't hear it until morning when the sun was barely rising over the city, and her phone buzzed against the nightstand. She reached for it half asleep, blinking hard to focus on the screen. The name she saw there turned her blood cold. Kira Locke. The past. The one person Nora had never mentioned to Vivian. Not because she was hiding her, but because she'd buried her. Or so she thought. The text was short. "Saw you on the news. Cute. You always did like powerful women. Hope she's ready for the damage." Nora sat up in bed, heartbeat spiking. She read it again and again, trying to find something less sharp in the words. But there was nothing. Just venom, just threat. And underneath it all, something Nora didn't want to name. Guilt. She got out of bed quietly, careful not to wake Vivian, and padded into the kitchen. Her hands were shaking as she poured coffee, not from fear of Kira herself, but from what her reappearance represented. A life Nora had run from. A person she had once been. One she never wanted Vivian to meet. Nora. Vivian's voice was groggy, low, laced with concern. "What is it?" Nora turned to Fast. "Nothing. Just couldn't sleep." Vivian stepped into the light, bare feet on cold tile, wearing only one of Nora's oversized t-shirts. "You're lying." Nora opened her mouth, closed it. "Someone texted me." "Who?" Nora hesitated. "Then my ex. The one before all this. The one I don't talk about." Vivian's brows. "What did she say?" Nora handed her the phone, watched her read it, watched her expression shift from curiosity to tension. "You never mentioned her." "There's a reason for that." "What kind of damage is she talking about?" Nora walked to the window, arms crossed tight around herself. "It wasn't a healthy relationship." "Did she hurt you?" "Not physically, emotionally, manipulation, isolation. She dismantled me slowly. By the time I realized what was happening, I was already someone I didn't recognize anymore." Vivian was quiet, listening. "I left one day," Nora continued. "Packed a bag, cut ties, vanished. I built everything I have now from the ground up after that. Alone. I didn't want anyone to know because that's not who I am anymore." Vivian stepped closer. "Then why is she here now?" "Because I'm visible. Because she sees a headline and wants to remind me that she still exists. That she can still reach me." "Can she?" Nora's voice was barely a whisper. "Only if I let her." A long pause. Vivian's voice was gentle but steady. "Why didn't you tell me?" Nora turned, eyes glassy. "You never ask. You think I wouldn't have understood?" "I didn't want to give her oxygen." "This isn't about her," Vivian said. "This is about trust. We don't get to pick which pieces of each other we love. We don't get to edit our histories." Nora's shoulders dropped. "I was ashamed of being hurt, of staying, of letting it happen, of not seeing it sooner." Vivian stepped forward, took her hands. "I've made mistakes, too. I've stayed in things that made me smaller. But we're not those women anymore. You're not broken, Nora. You're brave. But you have to let me stand beside all of you. Not just the polished parts." Nora nodded slowly, tears rising. "I didn't know how to say it. You just did." They didn't say much for the rest of the morning. The weight of confession lingered in the air between them. Not heavy, but honest. And Nora thought maybe that was what intimacy really was. The willingness to show the pieces that didn't glitter. That afternoon, Vivian's team forwarded an email that made Nora's stomach drop again. Kira had reached out to a journalist. She was offering to give exclusive insights into Nora Quinn's complicated past. Nora stared at the email in silence. "I'll bury it," Vivian said. "I'll call every contact I have." "No," Nora said, voice flat. "Don't let her speak." "What?" "If I try to shut her down, it only gives her more power. Let her talk. Let her say what she wants. I'm not hiding anymore. Nora, if you want to be with me, Nora said, you need to know that there are cracks in the foundation. I don't want you defending something you don't fully understand. Vivian stared at her, then nodded. Okay, we let her speak, but I stand beside you when she does. No, Nora said. You stand behind me because this is my past. I face it. 2 days later, the article dropped. It was everything Nora feared and expected. Dramatic, manipulative, carefully curated to make her look unstable, fragile, like someone with a history of emotional volatility. Nora read every word. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She just closed her laptop, took a breath, and posted a single statement. There are 2 sides to every story. I spent years being silent, but now I have a voice and I'm not afraid to use it. Survivors don't owe silence to their abusers. I won't correct her narrative. I'll just keep living mine fully, loudly, without shame. The post went viral. The response was overwhelming. Women from across industries reached out. Strangers sent messages of solidarity. Nora's name was no longer just linked to Vivian's. It stood on its own. That night, Vivian came home with tears in her eyes. You didn't need me to protect you, she said. You needed me to believe you. Nora kissed her slow and deep. And you did. That's all I've ever needed. In the quiet that followed, something settled between them. Something unbreakable. Nora had faced her past, and Vivian had stood still, not as a shield, but as proof that loving someone meant holding space for everything they are, even the pieces they once tried to hide. Nora had never felt so visible in her life. In the weeks following her public statement, her inbox flooded with messages from women, strangers, survivors, creators, executives, thanking her, sharing their own stories, telling her that her courage gave them permission to speak, to breathe, to reclaim. She walked into meetings with a straight back now. Clients listened more intently. Brands stopped seeing her as Vivian Kingsley's girlfriend and started seeing her as Nora Quinn. Woman, designer, survivor, voice. But with visibility came noise. Cameras where there hadn't been cameras before. Requests she couldn't always say yes to, and whispers. Always whispers. Nora had learned to walk through them with her head high. But what she hadn't expected was how it would affect Vivian. At first, it was subtle. Missed calls, shorter replies, late nights at the office that turned into early mornings. Nora told herself it was just work. Vivian had warned her this quarter would be brutal. But one night, Nora came home to find the penthouse dark, silent, and Vivian in the kitchen. Still in her heels, a half-empty glass of whiskey on the counter, and an untouched dinner on the stove. She was staring at nothing. Nora dropped her bag slowly. You okay? Vivian turned like she hadn't heard her come in. You're home early. It's 11:30. Is it? Nora stepped closer. You didn't answer my texts. Phone died. Vivian. A long silence. I didn't want to talk to anyone. Nora studied her. Even me. Vivian finally looked at her. Especially you. That stung more than Nora expected. What's going on? Vivian's side ran a hand through her hair. Everything's on fire. The board's on edge. Stock volatility. My PR team is panicking over Serena's little power plays. And there's a new expose being drafted about women in leadership. That's, let's just say, not flattering. That's not your fault. I know that. But she didn't sound like she believed it. Nora stepped closer. When's the last time you slept? Not sure. Eaten something. Coffee counts. Nora gently took the glass from her hand. Talk to me. You don't need to worry about this. I'm not worried about the company, Nora said. I'm worried about you. Vivian finally cracked then. Just a fracture. Just enough for Nora to see what she'd always suspected lived underneath the polish and power. Exhaustion, fear, loneliness. I'm used to being the one who holds everything together. Vivian whispered. The one who doesn't flinch, doesn't fall apart. I don't know how to need someone. It feels like failure. Nora reached for her hand. It's not failure. It's human. You don't understand. If I falter, it's not just me who falls. It's my staff, the brand, the entire company. Then let them fall. Let them wobble. Let someone else hold the weight for a minute. I don't know how. Nora pulled her into a hug. Vivian resisted for 1 second, just one, then melted into it. The strongest woman Nora had ever met trembled in her arms like a wire finally snapping. I can't breathe sometimes, Vivian said, voice muffled. The pressure, the expectation, the eyes on me all the time. It used to feel like power. Now it feels like chains. Nora held her tighter, then break them. I'm right here. That night, Nora made her tea, got her out of the heels, pulled her hair back, sat her down on the couch, and ran fingers through her hair until she fell asleep in her lap. The next morning, Vivian didn't go to the office. Nora didn't either. They stayed home, cooked pancakes, sat barefoot on the floor, talked about nothing and everything. Vivian was quieter than usual, less sharp, less in control, but more present. And Nora realized something she hadn't known she was waiting for. For so long, she'd wondered if she was strong enough to survive next to Vivian's brilliance. Now she realized it wasn't about surviving beside her. It was about holding her when she dimmed, about being the light when she forgot her own. You think they'll forgive you for disappearing today? Nora asked gently. Let them wait, Vivian said, biting into a pancake. I built the empire. I decide when to return to the throne. Nora laughed. Vivian didn't. She stared at her plate. What if I don't want the throne anymore? Nora blinked. What do you mean? What if I want something smaller, quieter? What if this version of me, the one who cooks and laughs and doesn't have to fight all the time, what if this is the only version that feels real anymore? Nora placed her fork down. Then we burn the castle. Vivian looked up, startled. What? If the throne doesn't fit anymore, we burn the castle down and build a house with fewer windows. No press, just you and me and something real. Vivian exhaled a shaky breath. You'd really give all this up? I didn't build an empire. I built a life. And you're the best part of it. Vivian's eyes filled just for a second. God, I love you. I know, Nora said, but say it again anyway. I love you, Vivian whispered. More than power, more than image, more than anything I ever thought I needed. Nora leaned forward and kissed her slow. Sure, like she wasn't just kissing a woman. She was kissing home. In the quiet that followed, Nora said, You always catch me when I fall. Let me be the one who holds you this time. Vivian didn't reply. She just pulled her closer and didn't let go. They started making plans on a Tuesday. It wasn't dramatic. There were no Camelot speeches, no ultimatums or grand confessions. It was just a quiet conversation over morning coffee in Nora's kitchen. Sunlight cutting through the blinds as Vivian, still barefoot, still slightly disheveled, looked up from her cup and said, I want out. Nora looked at her. Of what? The board, the title, the headlines, all of it. Nora didn't blink. Are you sure? No, Vivian admitted. But I'm tired. And when I imagine my life 5 years from now, I don't see more board meetings. I see your hand in mine. I see mornings like this. Peace. A life that doesn't chew me up and expect me to smile through it. Nora sat beside her. Quiet. That's not a small decision. Neither are you. Nora swallowed. So, what do you want to do? I want to step back. Sell part of the company. Appoint a new CEO. Keep enough to stay connected, but far enough to breathe. Maybe buy that little gallery space we saw in South Hollow. Turn it into something real for both of us. Nora's chest tightened. That sounds like a future. It is, Vivian said softly. But only if you want it to. Nora nodded. I want it. And just like that, something shifted. Not in the way the media shifts when it sniffs out scandal. Not like the slow unraveling of a lie. It was something deliberate, grounded, the soft, Sacred click of two lives beginning to braid together. They told no one at first. Nora continued with her freelance work, now more respected than ever. Vivian began taking quiet steps behind the scenes, meeting with legal teams, restructuring proposals, preparing for a handoff. They stopped attending events, stopped accepting interviews. For the first time, the world buzzed around them, but they didn't move with it. They moved with each other. On a rainy Thursday, Vivian showed Nora a property listing. A quiet ivy row house in Eastborough with ivy climbing the bricks and a sunlit back patio. Nora stared at the screen and whispered, "Is this real? It could be. Is it ours? If you say yes." Nora said yes. They made plans to visit it the following week, to walk through it together, to measure a life in hallways and light, and the sound of laughter filling a space that belonged to no one but them. But the storm came first. Not a literal one, though the city was drenched that night. Streets flooded. Thunder cracked across the sky like something ancient waking up. Nora was at her apartment packing an overnight bag. Vivian was still at the Kingsley offices, tying up loose end, and she couldn't hand off yet. At 10:03 p.m., Nora's phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, she wouldn't answer, but something in her gut turned over. She picked up. Silence. Then, "You think she's safe with you?" Nora froze. "Who is this? You really think she'll choose you over everything she's built?" The voice was low, distorted, familiar. "You're not strong enough for her. You're just convenient. A pretty distraction. You're not her future. Your phase." "Kira," Nora whispered. "Huh? How did you get this number? Does it matter? What do you want to remind you who you were? Who you are?" Nora's hand tightened around the phone. "You don't get to define me. And yet, here you are still picking up when I call." Nora hung up. Her whole body shook. Not from fear, but rage. Violation. The past clawing through the walls she had so carefully built. She called Vivian immediately. No answer. Called again. Voicemail. Nora grabbed her coat, her bag, her keys. Something in her chest screamed, "Go." The rain was brutal. Taxis were scarce. She jumped on the subway soaked, barely registering the stairs. She ran the 3 blocks from the station to Kingsley headquarters, heart pounding harder with every step. The lobby was locked. Of course, it was. But Nora wasn't thinking. She was moving. She called Vivian again. Finally, she picked up. "Nora." Her voice was soft, distracted. "Are you okay?" "No." Nora snapped. "Where are you?" "In the conference room. Last meeting of the night." Why? Nora didn't wait. She buzzed every intercom until security finally answered, explained frantically, breathlessly, who she was. The guard recognized her, reluctantly led her up. The elevator felt like a coffin. When the doors opened, Nora didn't wait. She marched straight through the darkened hallway and burst into the conference room. Vivian looked up, startled. "What?" Nora didn't let her finish. She crossed the room, rain still clinging to her skin, eyes fierce. "She called me." "Who?" "Kira." Vivian stood. "What?" "She called. Tonight. Said I'm not enough. That I'm a phase. That you'd never choose me over your empire." Vivian's face darkened. "Are you okay?" "No, I'm not. I'm tired of a shadow crawling through my life. I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. I'm tired of wondering if I'm strong enough to hold you when the world keeps trying to pry us apart." Vivian reached her, hands steady on Nora's arms. "You don't have to hold me alone." "Then prove it," Nora whispered. "Because I'm giving you everything, my past, my future, my fear, my hope. I need to know you're all in." Vivian stared at her, then drew Nora close and kissed her like the end of the world, like silence breaking, like thunder settling. "I'm all in," she breathed against her mouth. "I've been all in since the moment you sat at the wrong table." Nora let out a half laugh, half sob. "Then let's be done with the past. Tomorrow," Vivian said, "we go to that Ivy Row house. We sign the papers. We build our life. And Kira? She gets nothing. Not another second of our time. Not another corner of your mind. Nora exhaled, leaned into her, and for the first time since the storm began inside and out felt the ground steady under her feet. They signed the papers on a quiet Friday morning. No press, no handlers, no lawyers bracketing them with clipped voices and briefcases. Just Nora, Vivian, a real toss smiling like she knew she was watching one story end and something rare begin, and a set of silver keys that trembled in Nora's palm the moment they landed there. The Ivy Row house looked different now, not because it had changed, but because they had. When Vivian turned the lock and stepped inside, she exhaled as if the city's weight had finally slid off her back. Nora followed, closed the door softly, and leaned against it for a long breath. The silence was thick but warm. Possibility hummed in the walls. "It's empty," Nora whispered. "Not for long," Vivian said. They wandered the rooms together slowly. Nora traced her fingers along the windowsills, already imagining plants there, art on the walls, soft rugs, and late morning light flooding through the kitchen. Vivian moved like someone learning to breathe again, hand brushing along door frames, taking it all in. "This is the first place I've ever owned that wasn't for the brand," she said. "It's not for optics, not for legacy. It's just for us." Nora smiled. "That means we can mess it up and fill it with too many books and too many mugs. And the wrong color paint and laughter." Nora said softly, "God, I want there to be so much laughter in here." Vivian crossed the room, pulled her into a kiss. "Then let's make it happen." That night, they lay on a mattress on the floor of their new bedroom, still in their clothes, surrounded by takeout containers and unopened boxes. No furniture, no curtains, just the hum of the city outside and the soft sound of rain on the windows. "What now?" Nora asked. "Now we live," Vivian said. "We wake up. We burn the toast. We learn how to share a closet. We fight over movies. We buy too many throw pillows. We build it all from the ground up." Nora looked over at her. "Are you scared?" "Terrified," Vivian admitted. "You only when I remember how badly I want this to last." Vivian reached for her hand. "Then let's make it last." And they did. Days turned into weeks. They filled the house with color, with mismatched furniture, with the sound of music drifting from every room. Nora painted again. Real painting, not for work, not for anyone's approval. Vivian started writing, something she hadn't done in over a decade. A memoir, a manifesto. She didn't know yet, only that Nora had cracked open something soft in her that she didn't want to close again. They hosted dinners for friends, turned the tiny guest room into a studio, turned the garden into a jungle of herbs and failed tomatoes. And through it all, they learned how to be together. Not perfectly, but honestly. Nora learned that Vivian slept with the window open even in winter. That she hummed while brushing her teeth. That sometimes she got quiet when she was overwhelmed, not out of distance, but protection. Vivian learned that Nora needed time before big things. That she cried during documentaries. That she apologized more than she should, even when nothing was her fault. One night, after a small party at the house, wine, soft music, friends talking on the floor until 2 a.m., Nora stood in the kitchen, barefoot, holding a half-empty bottle of sparkling water, and said, "I've never felt like this before." Vivian leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "Like what?" "Safe scene. Still me, but more." "You are more," Vivian said. "You're the best thing I ever accidentally found." Nora smiled. It was the mistake that changed your life. The best table you ever sat at by accident." They laughed, kissed, held each other for a long time, like the world couldn't touch them here, because it couldn't, because they had built something untouchable. Not perfect, not smooth, but unbreakable. Months passed. The world moved. Headlines shifted to newer stories, but their story stayed steady, real. One late afternoon, Nora came home to find Vivian in the backyard, barefoot in the grass, holding a small box in her hands. Nora raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Something reckless," Vivian said. "Come here." Nora walked over, suspicion warmth tangled together. Vivian opened the box. A ring, simple, elegant, a stone the color of stormlight. "I know we said we didn't need this, that the house was the promise, that the life we built already said everything." Nora stared at her, eyes wide. "But I want to say it anyway," Vivian continued. "I want to ask you anyway. I want to stand in front of everyone, whoever we choose, and tell them that loving you wasn't just a choice. It was the smartest, hardest, most beautiful thing I've ever done." Nora's throat closed. "Are you proposing to me in the dirt?" "Yes," Vivian said, "because this is ours, and I don't care if they're champagne or violins. I just care if you say yes." Nora laughed, cried, nodded. "Yes, God, yes." Vivian slid the ring onto her finger. Nora didn't even glance at it. She threw herself into Vivian's arms, sending them both tumbling into the grass, breathless, tangled, whole. Above them, the sky opened wide, no headlines, no shadows, only light, only love, only the life they chose together, forever. If you enjoyed this and want to support the channel in a special way, please tap the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.